Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and today I'm going to try and complete a challenge set by you and to do with the Ultra Agent scene that is all over my Brick Nottingham Post building. So already buzzing around the top, climbing up the sides, all over the front, smashing through the middle, all of the Ultra villains from the Ultra Agents line. And I think this is a really dynamic scene, especially with the tank also bursting through that ground floor. It looks absolutely amazing. But when I did this, I was challenged to incorporate one more vehicle from the range into the scene. And thankfully, that wasn't Cyclone's great big hurricane heist sort of massive mech thing, because that would be an absolute disaster trying to incorporate into a scene like this. It's just too big and too kind of, well, weird, really. I mean, what is that thing? It also wasn't the big helicopter that was part of the Toxicita's Toxic Meltdown set, I'm also glad to say, because I think that would get in the way of a lot of our scenes as well. But the only other baddie vehicle that hasn't been included in this scene is Drillex's one, which is from Drillex Diamond Job 70168. And basically it was kind of a drilling machine, a dual driller, if you will, and that was suggested to be included in this scene, basically erupting from the ground to deliver Drillex to the scene. So it'd be yet more carnage and destruction in what is already very busy. But it had the additional benefit of kind of explaining why maybe the Leaning Tower of Ferrari, which is the next skyscraper along, was leaning in the way it was. They were saying it could sort of be coming up on the downward sort of side of it, causing subsidence. Or I was thinking, well, it could do the same thing over here and have sort of kind of pushed it up. So I think I might have that as my reason for including it, basically in this spot here. Now, this vehicle, which I've since purchased via the wonders of eBay, is really cool. And you can see when you use its tracks, it actually pushes around its drills in kind of a dual rotation motion, because this rotates and then these actually rotate on it as well. So they're kind of rotating twice as fast. And there's a really cool sort of red, trans red cabin sort of bit at the back. And that's really cool. But I mean, this is the best part, this sort of rotation motion that really looks good fun to drive around. But we won't be able to have that when it's in its pose, because it will kind of be, well, erupting from the depths, kind of in a position like, well, that. And, well, it's not going to be very good if it's all sort of teetering above the surface like this. So what I think I'm going to have to do is kind of build it into kind of a facade, I suppose, but a facade into the floor, kind of with it erupting sort of half in, half out, like it's just coming through and causing all this damage to the surrounding area. So that was the challenge, and that is challenge accepted. I'm going to try and do that today. So I think what we need to do is several things. One, kind of find a way where we can break this into two. I think it's either going to have to be kind of along this line in between these two parts here and try and sort of use alternate pieces where we can't get one that is a kind of half of one that we're going to have to cut through, if that makes sense. Or maybe we're going to have to cut it about here, lose the cabin, or maybe the cabin could be open because Drillex kind of just got out sort of thing. We're going to have to do something very clever with the tracks, so they're sort of held in position, so it looks like it's sort of coming out of the ground, kind of like that. Yeah, so it's going to be a bit challenging, really. But then we can do loads of kind of wreckage of the ground and earth and pavement all around the kind of edges of it, have Drillex sort of nonchalantly wandering out, sort of going, hey guys, what's up? And it being a really good excuse for why this building has kind of been pushed up from its foundation and why it's tipping to the left. I think that would be really, really good. And then, just so we're making really best use of all the space, I'm going to try and leave about 4 studs kind of along the back, along the wall, so we can have the facade of another building, maybe not really, really skyscraper sort of height, but maybe up to about here or something. Not today, but just leave space for a future day to do something there to A, cover up some more of that wall and this door into the closet, but also, so it kind of looks like it's just popped up in the foyer or in front of the foyer of another building. I think that would be really good rather than having a gap all the way up the wall. So that is the plan. Get that dual driller, chop it in half, turn it up so it's facing the sky, have Drillex kind of popping out of it like he's just arrived on the scene, and yeah, it will really tie this pair of skyscrapers together. Cool, right, let's go down to the building desk. All right, down on the building desk, and oh, very dangerous indeed. There is the Drillex machine. It is really great. I do like driving it around a lot, so it's going to be a bit unfortunate that we're going to be basically removing the ability for it to go round and round on its own. I've not got any plans to motorise it. I think that's just going over the top, quite frankly. But yeah, we do have to pick a line on which to kind of make the cut. And I'm kind of thinking there was one of the possibilities kind of halfway through these flamish yellow-orange kind of sections. But then that's going to cut right through the stickered piece and through a lot of the Technic stuff underneath. So I don't think that's going to work. I think the second idea of doing it just beneath them might work really well. And if I have the cockpit kind of open and take Drillex out for a moment, if he'll come out, go on, there we go, then essentially we could have the ground level about there. Then I'll just have to make a cut, well, in between there, and then, well, I'd still have to do something with all the tracks, but that's going to have to be done whatever I do. So I kind of think if we just use this base plate as kind of a idea of where the floor might be, I could make the cut kind of like there. And then that would be our scene. And I think that looks quite good, actually. If you imagine sort of rubble all around all sides of this vehicle, and there'll be that facade kind of behind where my hand is there, then that kind of looks like he's just coming out of the cockpit. Yeah, because the join will be completely hidden. So I think that's what I'm going to do, actually, make the executive decision. So this bit looks relatively simple, just taking them off, but I'm going to have to sort of use different length plates in all of this section. I'm going to have to sort of take apart that inverted slope section and see if I... Oh, actually, there's a join between two of those parts there as well, so that looks quite easy. Yeah, so it's really all the tracks and all of the Technic stuff that's going to need the most amending. And indeed, I'm going to have to try and pin this kind of to the floor on either side so it sort of looks like it's taut still, because otherwise it's just going to sort of flap around and not look right at all. So I might need to make a kind of smaller loop, kind of like that, that looks like it's going into the ground, kind of like a facade, like I was saying, even though it isn't in reality. Right, okay, I'm going to start deconstructing this vehicle and seeing, well, what I need to do. Good. Well, I've started to tear down, and it is a bit of a shame that we're going to be losing a lot of the detail on the back, including these stud shooters and this kind of, well, exhaust, I suppose that would be. But it's unfortunately unavoidable. So I reckon I can use different plates for this layer, this layer, this layer, and this layer in between there. Fortunately, there's a join here anyway along the line that we're going to be cutting, so I can just get rid of all those parts back from there. And then we get to the Technic workings, where I've kind of started taking off one side. Now, I don't have a 10 long Technic brick that will basically go up to our join line and as far forwards as it was before, but I do have these 8 long ones, and essentially, well, the first 2 holes aren't really used, and when it's sort of in its position like that, I really don't think you're going to be able to tell or really care. So that, I think, is fine. So I can use 2 of those in place of that right up to the cut line, but then I do need to do something quite complicated with all of this, and I figure that I'm going to use these much smaller gears to basically have one kind of on the normal line and have another one directly above it. So instead of using this kind of angled support beam, I'll have one of those ones that's a right angle, and then with a pair of those like that, I can have a much sort of shorter section of track going around it, and I think that will be roughly level with the floor, which is going to be there. So if I have that in kind of that line there, I think that could work. So that is my next plan, so I'm going to try and get on with that. Wish me luck. Right, so there is all of the plates changed and parts removed, and we can start to see that cut line now. Looks very clear indeed, doesn't it? And I just thought I'd even up that bit that I couldn't get right with the Technic bricks by putting some inverted slopes on there. So I think that looks complete again now. Very nice. So actually now we can stand it up and see how it's going to look, kind of erupting out of the floor. Loads of brickwork and paving slabs all around. Yeah, I think that'll work quite well. But it is fundamental that we get these tracks right. So we can't use the process that we had before that would be way back here and kind of at the wrong angle and everything. So what I'm going to try and do is use a similar sort of support arm type piece, but right angled, like I say, with two of the smaller gears on. And I think one can go through the very back axle there, kind of like that. And then the other one will be kind of on the top part of that. So it's just, well, probably immediately above it, which is why it won't go round anymore if we want it to, with the track going round that. So yeah, I'll figure I'll use a similar setup as this, but probably slightly improved, because that axle does stick out quite a bit and looks quite ugly. I mean, that would definitely drag underneath the ground when it was excavating, I'm sure. So yeah, but it's really coming together, and I think you'll get an idea of how it'll look now. I mean, it'd be great if it was at a slightly weird angle, but I think that's going to be practically impossible to get right with these tracks. And vertically up, well, it's not too bad really, is it? I did have kind of a funny idea that on the top could be perched something like one of my coffee stalls or something like that, like it had come up directly beneath it and pushed it into the air. But then again, I think maybe that might detract from what's actually underneath it. So yeah, I think we'll continue with the idea of having a facade building behind it, so it still looks like a very built up area. Cool, right, let's sort out that track mechanism. Oh, I think we're nearly there. Taken 14 little links off each track, and if I just put the final one onto here, then it's a bit tight, but we can do it. There we go. Oh, there we are. It's got some very weird little tracks now, but if we can seal the bottom part where I'm putting my thumb, then I think it looks like it's the original shape of the tracks. So yeah, I mean, it stands up very firmly. No problem there. We can basically have a base, swap that on there, put Drillex kind of coming out the front, and then all we need to do is put loads and loads of wreckage around, soil and whatever. Yeah, it looks really good. I really like it. Maybe put that at a slight angle. There we go. Yeah, I think that'll look really good. So we'll have to do quite well with our erupting sort of scene, otherwise it won't look believable and you'll be kind of like, what's that strange building over there? But yeah, we'll have to have some sort of black murk here that he's kind of coming out of. But I think that's going to work really well. Tell me what you think. But yeah, I'm going to press on. Okay, so what I've started doing is just kind of picking a spot for it to go on. Obviously, I'll have to transfer all of this onto proper base plates that are in the city at a later date. But I've kind of started putting down some soil just on areas that really need to be flat, like underneath the tracks, just so it can kind of fit on snugly without sort of tipping over or something. And I think they'll be concealed by more slopes in due course. And I'm just starting to sort of put in some of the bigger slopes sort of against the machine where they'll go, and I can kind of build up more detail around there in due course. And then at the front, I'm just using one of these series minifigure stands just to hold a few bits of wreckage as well that are kind of tipped into the cockpit as it's opened to let out our man Drillex, and he can kind of be walking out like that onto the undisturbed pavement out the front. So I do think I need to add, lots more bits in the gaps, lots more wreckage and so on, and then I'll just have sort of a clean band around the outside, and then when I transfer it into the city, I'll just work out exactly how much of each I need to do. I mean, it might be that the buildings are right up close to it on either side. I don't really know at this stage. So yeah, I think that's starting to look good. And I'll probably need to go a little bit higher here just to conceal that bottom bit of track, but it will be in shadow, so I don't think it will be the end of the world. So yeah, I'll keep going. All right. I think I've finished that. And it's looking pretty good if you ask me. We've got the untouched pavement all around the outside with a stud for Drillex to stand on, and then little bits of soil and wreckage that have been flung a further distance. I don't want it too broad a scene after all. Then bigger, chunkier bits all around the actual vehicle itself. suggesting bent paving slabs and all the rest of it. And I've kept this bit black just to sort of represent the inside of the cockpit where he's coming from, and some of the soil has sort of leaked into there. And you won't see the majority of this section at all when it's in position in the city. And I don't know exactly where it's going to go in the city, so that's why I won't be putting it in today. We've got overhanging slabs here, because exactly where it's going to go, I think there'll probably be one more row and then the road, I suppose, which will leave us about 4 studs on the back for a facade. That's what I'm thinking anyway. So yeah, I think that looks realistic, and you can see I've used old grey as well as light bluish grey and dark bluish grey just to give it a bit of variety. So in comes the vehicle itself, and you kind of have to wiggle that into position, but it's very firmly held now because all these things are really, really close up. And then these 2 slopes are just so I can have one kind of overhanging into the track on each side. And that's dual purpose really. That kind of holds it in position even more. Not that you'll be knocking it very often, I'm sure, but it definitely conceals as well the fact that that track does go along the bottom around those other things as well. And it's nice and taut, so I think it looks rather accurate. So there we go. We just need to add the man himself coming out of the cockpit. And I think we've got a really good scene to add to the one we've already got, which was pretty much packed with everything going on as it was. And this just really explains why the Ferrari Tower has become the leaning tower of Ferrari, as I like to call it. So yeah, that's really good. So I've got to say thanks to all the people who challenged me. I'll give you a bedoing, because they caused me to think again and actually buy this build, which I'd avoided up to that point, and create another really dynamic Ultra Agent scene. Wow. So yeah, that'll go in between those 2 buildings. We'll have a facade later, but for today, I'm really happy with that. Do tell me what you think. So as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. And if you value this channel, there are many ways in which you can support it. Do check out the links in the description below. And next time on Robin Hood Bricks, we'll be doing a brick haul with some vital pieces for some upcoming projects. And then on Friday, well, I think we'll have to go back for part 2 of our underwater base, because I'm really enjoying that. And you gave me lots of feedback from part 1. And well, I've got so many things to do on it. I'm really looking forward to it. So until all of that, see you